If you smell what the truck is cooking.
A Devon Street exclusive.
All right, Liam, welcome, mate. Episode 4.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be.
How's things?
Going well. It's been busy at the moment between working and playing some footy on the side. So, yeah,
perfect.
Life during the week is a bit chaotic, but nice to be at the end of a week now.
For sure. Yep, Friday. We've just spoken about it.
Yep.
You've got footy tomorrow. You said you're not going to play up, but how far that'll get you, I don't know.
Yeah.
If you win, you could muck around.
It's always the hardest part of the weekend is if you have a really good win, you kind of feel a bit guilty for going home and sitting on your ass.
Exactly,
So we'll just wait and see. I've got a couple of bottles of red that I bought on the bottle shop on the way home. So
very good.
Prepping for the worst.
Perfect.
Just wait and see.
So I sent you a bit of a reminder earlier on today. My first question is always favourite WWE wrestler growing up, or if you didn't watch it growing up, what would your entrance song be?
Well,
were you a WWE man?
Admittedly, I didn't watch a lot of WWE.
But you're
my
aware.
mates at school were right into it. So
Perfect.
Rey Mysterio was the one that I sort of went to.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah.
I think that's number. So you're my fourth.
Yeah.
You're the third.
Really?
You're the third to say Ray.
Well, there you go. I mean,
Absolutely.
Yeah, it wasn't a real passion of mine, but we used to sort of go and get together at a mate's house, and he actually set up his own little wrestling ring.
Tramp out the back.
Yeah, my mate ended up breaking his elbow, so I cut that short pretty quick. But it was always good.
Very good. We'll jump right into it. I haven't really given you too much of a heads up in terms of like the structure of the way we want to talk about it today, but I think it's important to sort of, and I said this to you Wednesday when we met up, for us to, I'll just double check that we're still rolling here. Yeah, we're good. I think it's important that we sort of cover, I guess, everything that you've sort of achieved in your life and where you're at now, to then talk about what sort of connected us in the beginning. So give people, obviously, I've got a lot of questions for you, obviously, to ask you, and then from there, people can obviously get a really good idea on where you're at in life, and then everything that you're doing at the moment. So I'm going to essentially I want to start from the beginning. So we know nothing about each other really. So what sort of kid were you growing up? That's my first question.
What sort of kid? So
how would you describe yourself growing up? Were you a pretty sort of out there kid, or were you sort of introverted?
I think initially I was always relatively extroverted. My dad's quite an extroverted guy, so learning from him all the good and bad stuff.
Mm-hmm.
When I was younger, I was a bit of a goody two-shoe in a way. I tried to do the right thing all the time, and as I got older and sort of knocked around with a couple of mates that were, the wrong crowd, which they're now my best mates. I think they sort of turned me to the dark side a little bit. But as a kid, I think I'd say I was pretty extroverted.
Yeah, very good. What? So you're a Victorian boy.
I am.
Where exactly did you grow up? Did you grow up in Melbourne, or were you?
Yeah. So my family's still at the moment living in a suburb called Aberfeldy, which is in Essendon. Obviously, people would know the footy team. So I grew up in Essendon. Went to school pretty much in Essendon as well. Went to high school in Essendon. So my life was spent from obviously being born until when I was 22. I was in Victoria and living in Melbourne. So spent a lot of time living in Essendon with my family, and then I moved out and was living with one of my best mates in Northcote, which is sort of near Fitzroy. So really nice, cool area. Yeah,
nice.
So spent a couple of years there before I moved over to Adelaide.
Very good. So in terms of obviously growing up, we jumped around a bit there, but did you go to, was there one certain school that you went to, one high school that you went to for the whole period of your high schooling period? Or?
Yep. So I went to St. Bernard's College. So relatively well-known football school or sporting school as such in Victoria. Not sort of one of the sort of prestigious east side sort of private schools. Yeah. But we were a private school and all boys. So I went there from year 7 all the way through to completion year 12. Yeah,
nice. I guess that sort of leads, in terms of it being like a sporting school and everything, that leads into the next question I sort of had. Obviously, you're still playing football to this day. What age did football sort of become a genuine career opportunity for you, do you reckon? Was there a point in your life where you sort of got to maybe 15, 16 and you thought, like, shit, I could actually like make something of this? Or
Yeah, I mean, every kid grows up thinking, when they're playing footy, they want to play AFL, they want to play professionally, and I was no different to that. Like kicking around the footy in the backyard and commentating myself and kicking 10 every week, like it was
beautiful,
heaps of fun.
Who were you? What player?
Oh, Matthew Richardson. So
Yep,
I was a Richmond
Richo.
fan growing up. So
there you go.
Yeah, he was definitely the idol.
Perfect.
So I think, in terms of making it a career, I think it was probably, I was in part of some of the sort of talent programs. I think it wasn't until I got a scholarship to go into the Australian Institute of Sport Academy program, which is sort of for the handful of 15 to 30 of the same age group. So you go to Canberra once a year and you do a couple of overseas trips and stuff as well.
Yep.
So I think when I got that scholarship, that was probably the first moment I thought, actually, maybe I'm potentially on the right pathway to getting somewhere here.
That's at about 16.
That was
Is it usually?
yeah, 16. So we'd finished up our under 16 champs.
Yep.
I was playing for Vic Metro at the time, and got a letter in the mail. I remember walking home from school with a couple of my mates, and I went to the letterbox, and I was like, shit, like,
Yeah,
got a
nice.
scholarship, like this is nuts. So, obviously with that came a bit of pressure and everything as well. But I think that's probably the first time I thought, oh, maybe I'll actually be able to make something of this.
Yeah, I guess when like you're younger as well, like as soon as people maybe people outside of your like direct either like friendship group, and then also like maybe your footy, like your junior footy club that you're growing up with, as soon as they start notably taking interest in you, then that's within yourself you think, okay, maybe there's something actually here, because obviously like the more that like external sources are actually like taking interest in you, then the more that sort of pumps you up a bit, I guess. But
definitely, I mean, it fueled that a little bit. And I think when I was that age as well, I was about probably 20 kilos lighter than what I am now, and I was still super tall and
so
hadn't grown into my body at all.
Were
really.
you still, so there's like, how tall are you now?
So I'm just under 6'8" now. So when I was 16, I was probably between 6'5" and 6'6" maybe, I reckon.
Yeah, right.
So I was pretty tall. I had a big growth spurt between sort of 15 and 16, where I went from 6'2" to 6'4" or 5" in the space of a year. So like I hadn't really grown into my body at all at that point. So although I was a pipe dream, I was kind of like, I'm nowhere near ready to be playing against men. Like I'm built like a boy. So
was it always footy?
No, basketball as well.
Basketball,
I was right into my basketball up until I sort of got to that sort of fork in the road where I was like, you got to choose basketball or footy. And at that point in time as well, I guess basketball in Australia, the pathway is probably a lot harder to sort of get to where you want to get to. Like when you're playing basketball, you want to play NBA.
Yeah.
The reality of the situation is you probably end up playing domestic league and all that kind of stuff, and then you might progress yourself into a bit more of a regional sense. But it is a bit of a harder pathway. So I sort of chose footy as that. Footy was my first passion. Yeah. And then I think it just worked out to be more of a logical choice.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. So I guess sort of fast tracking. So you obviously went through the AIS program. And, you would have obviously played like the national championships and everything from there. How was so I guess like your draft year essentially, how was that leading up? Were you sort of like unsure in terms of whether you might get picked up, or were you?
Yeah, it was a bit of a combination. I think early in the year, I'd come off my sort of bottom age year playing for Calder Cannons was quite strong. And I think the games that I'd played had sort of put me in a good position where I was, sort of speaking to a few clubs. And so I kind of had a little bit of that confidence, I guess, behind me that there were people that were interested. But at the same time, I had to back it up that next year. And to be honest, my top age year was pretty disappointing. I got moved around a bit from playing forward, then went into the back line, played a little bit of ruck. I just don't think I really hit the same heights as what I sort of did the year before. So that's the sort of difference in pressure. You're riding that wave a fair bit. Like even the Vic Metro Championships, I actually got dropped for my last game against WA. So I was playing centre half back, and they actually dropped me. So that was one of those things that I guess fueled me the back end of that year. And I probably needed that. I probably needed like a bit of a kick up the arse, because that stage I was probably thinking, oh, how good am I going? I might be getting picked up. But you kind of need that to sort of keep you motivated and keep you engaged. So
absolutely. Yeah. So 2012?
Yep.
2012 was the draft year. You went, I could be wrong here, was it 33?
That's the one,
Pick 33.
Yeah.
Describe draft day, draft night. Was it nerve-wracking? Did you attend the draft? Were you just sitting at home with the fam? What was the go?
I was absolutely shitting myself, to be honest. Because up until that point, my manager and I had spoken a fair bit about where they thought I was going to go. And at that stage, it was anywhere from sort of 15 to 40. And there had been a few clubs that had sort of talked to him about me, but had not really given any firm commitment. And at that stage, I kind of thought I might have been heading into state. I think it might have been like a Port or maybe like a Freo or something like that as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the draft night I spent at my auntie's house because at that point, Mum and Dad didn't have Foxtel, so we couldn't actually watch the draft live.
Right, there you go.
So we went to my auntie's house, and I just got sort of 10 to 15 of my closest schoolmates, which could have backfired horribly if things didn't go well.
There's the potential there for it to be pie in the face.
I've heard some bad stories about it, so I'm glad it worked out well. But in my head, I'd memorised. I was so nervous, but I'd memorised my player ID number, my draft number.
Yeah.
So
you watched it on Fox Sports still?
Yeah, watched it on the Foxtel. So the first round had sort of been and gone, and so I was early in the second round. I think I was sort of the 6th or 7th pick of the second round, and anyway, sort of we're sitting there, and Richmond pop up, which was the team that I'd supported as a kid.
Yeah, so I obviously didn't know that. You said that before. I was like, that's a dream.
Childhood dream. You know, my dad and I had sort of gone to Richmond games when I was a kid. Yeah. So that was always a dream. Anyway, so my player number started getting read out, and I was just waiting for the last 3 numbers. And then as soon as the 3 numbers sort of went up, I just like started crying. I was just like so over the moon.
Overwhelmed,
and my dad as well, like he was just losing it. My parents, mum as well, and like all my mates just jump up and down. Like it was one of the definitely the most special nights I've ever had. Cause it's an accumulation of all this kind of stress and pressure and hard work and all that kind of stuff. So to get read out by your team you supported was just unbelievable. So we ended up we went out that night and had a few drinks all together and celebrated, which was good fun. But then I think it was Thursday night was a draft, and by Monday I was on a flight to Cairns for a footy camp.
I was going to say that was sort of my next thing. Like I was going to get you to describe what your first year was like, but that sort of that sums it up to an extent. Like you're drafted, and then 3 or 4 days after you're shipped off on a footy camp with your new club, and it's drop of a hat. Like you hear that, like obviously you hear those stories all the time, but I guess like when that's actually you're like fuck, this is actually me. Like I'm in that position now. Yeah. How would you sort of describe your first year at the club? Because I know obviously, if we're going back to 2012 or end of 2012, heading into 2013, there's it like obviously still then it's not that long ago. Like big names at the club.
Yeah, so that's the thing. I'd grown up idolising players like Jack Rewald, Delisted, Dustin Martin, Trent Cotchin. All
were
these
they sort of
guys.
how old would have like Jack Rewald been at that time?
Well, at that time, I think he might be early 30s now. I reckon he would have been when I got to the club like 24, 25.
Yeah, so
they were like the age I'm at now.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to think about looking back. But first year was just like a bit of a roller coaster of everything. Like I was so lightly framed that I spent the majority of the time, I was expected to spend the majority of the time in the gym because I was just so, obviously lightly built. So a lot of gym, a lot of protein shakes, a lot of eating.
How did you find the eating? Because I know like I've spoken to a lot of people that are trying to like almost, it would almost get to a point where like you almost make yourself feel sick. Yeah. Because your body's not used to like eating that much. It gets to a point, it get to a point where you're like, like you said, force feeding yourself.
And I was never really like it's surprising because obviously I'm like my stature and stuff, but like I was never really a big eater for someone that was so tall. Like I was never really a really like big eater, and so I guess like my first year was just full of like force feeding. Obviously a lot of learning because you're just taking so much in. I was always tired, like because you have pre-season especially. You come home after a day and you're just absolutely exhausted. I remember like coming home from trainings and just carking it in bed at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So it was such a steep learning curve for me. And then I played a fair bit of footy at Coburg.
I was going to say, so they're obviously, you would have been playing, you're in the twos, so Coburg were Richmond's link.
It was such an interesting year because I'd never thought at the start of the year that I'd even be a chance to play, AFL level anyway. And it sort of got to about midway through the year and I'd sort of played a fair bit of footy in the VFL with Coburg and it was playing quite well. And then I had Choco Williams, who was part of the club at the time, coming up to me and saying, like, you better get your shit in gear because you're a chance to play. Like, they're starting to speak about your match community. I'd started kicking a few goals here and there. So
Yeah.
my mindset kind of changed. And then a couple of weeks out from the end of the year, I sort of went to tackle, which I don't usually do either.
Yep. Perfect.
Went to tackle, and my leg got caught under me, and I tore my syndesmosis in my ankle.
Yep. Yep.
Sort of connects the bones together at the bottom there. So that ended my season pretty much from there. And
That was like later on in the season, was it?
So August. So I was in rehab for about sort of 3 or 4 months.
I was going to say, so that would have that's obviously like stunted your pre-season for the next year, and then because I guess that leads into like obviously year 2. Was that injury? Did that injury itself like linger the following year, or did that lead on to like some other injuries? Or
I was very lucky. Like, I had a really clean surgery. They didn't want to actually operate on me initially. And I'm not sure it was because there was still some time left in the year where I could have potentially got back, but it just didn't heal without surgery. So I went under the knife, and I got back to sort of full training in February, just before we started our sort of NAB Cup games, or whatever they were called at the time.
Yep.
And I came in off pretty well no real preseason into that game, and I absolutely fucking struggled. Like, I think I had one kick and it went out in the full.
Perfect.
And I got taken off at halftime. So I was like, right, this is my introduction to playing
this is
AFL footy. Yeah.
Very good.
But yeah, no real lingering like pains or things from that, which was really handy.
Yeah, that's good. So 2 years. So obviously, I guess obviously you didn't play in terms of the AFL side for 2 seasons. What round was it in your third? Was it your third year that you broke through?
Yeah.
So what round was it then that you broke through? Was it like early on, or was
it was sort of midway through the year, and
because the Tigers were going pretty well that year, weren't they? 2013.
Yeah. So 2013 we were going well. 2014 we struggled. We won 6 games in a row in the back of the year to make finals.
Yeah, that's
and then
right. You
lost against Port here.
Yeah, of course.
And then the year after we were ticking along quite well.
Yeah.
And I think there was an injury or 2 in the league side that meant that I was a chance to play. And my breakthrough, actually, the game I played, my first game was against Collingwood, actually.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to ask you. Yeah, so that would have been...
It would have been middle of the year. I reckon it was maybe June.
Yeah.
So
that was your debut against...
Debut, yeah.
And that was 2015, yeah. Okay, so how many people there if you're playing against Collingwood?
I think there was 63, I reckon, 63,000 the first game.
Yeah. How was that experience?
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah, it was nuts. It was all a bit of a blur now to like look back on.
Yeah.
Because what happened was I played that game. I got subbed at 3/4 time. So the coach comes out to me holding a red vest, and I'm going, fuck.
Oh, so you were the sub. That's the sub rule. I completely forgot about that. So you played.
Yep, played 3/4, and then they have obviously a sub on the bench that comes on at the end of the game. You can activate it.
Yeah.
So I played 3/4, and I think I'd had sort of 7 or 8 touches. So I wasn't really setting the world on fire, but I was just starting to get into the game a bit.
Yeah.
I was really excited to play the last quarter. He comes out the red vest. I'm going, fucking hell.
So did you win that game?
We won.
Yeah.
So I got to sit in the middle of had the Gatorade shower.
Perfect. Very good.
And I got dropped the following week. So I played out at Casey, which is like out in the sticks out in Victoria.
Wow. So it was MCG.
Out to Casey, and it was like howling wind. It was like 3 degrees out there. And then I got brought back into the side the week after.
And that was against?
Essendon, which was the Dreamtime game.
Oh,
and played. It was Dustin Fletcher's 400th as well. So it was a big game.
Wow.
I think it was about 82,000 there. So
yeah.
That was, and my best mate, one of my best mates, Joe Daniher, was at the other end. So we were living together and like drove together and all that sort of shit.
So you were living together.
Yeah.
Right. So were you obviously mates with him for like a long time? Like you've been good mates forever?
We went to high school together.
Sick.
Played at the same local footy team, went through all the metros and Calder Cannons, AIS, all that sort of stuff together. So
unreal.
We were pretty familiar with each other by then.
That's unreal. So when was your first goal? Because
I think I kicked 2 points against Essendon, and I kicked one. My first kick actually against Collingwood in my debut was out in the full as well. So I had this real track record of shitting myself right at the wrong moment.
So it was
it was the following year.
All it takes is one kick, isn't it? One kick, one set shot a goal, and you've got the jitters, and it's in your head.
100%. And then the next year we played against Western Bulldogs, and that was my first game of 2016 that I played. And that was that following year, and we were sort of. Well, thereabouts. This is the year the Dogs won the flag too.
Yeah.
So they were in really good shape. And we were there in the game, the whole game. And then late in the last quarter, I took a mark with about sort of 15 minutes gone the last and to put us in front, and I just snuck it through. Like I remember kicking it, thinking, "Oh fuck, I missed again here." And then anyway, so that was the first goal I kicked, and that was one and only actually that I kicked at top level.
Did you win that game?
We lost.
You lost.
We lost, and but I didn't get subbed though, which is the main thing.
That, and also the fact is obviously no fault of your own. You kicked the goal, so
yeah, I did everything I could.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So it was 5 games total.
5 total. Yeah.
Very good. 1 snag.
1 snag.
Very good.
Yep.
Sort of, I guess. So 2016, the year you said the Dogs won the flag.
Yep.
That was when you played your final game.
Yep.
Going on from there, were you on the list for the following year, or you weren't?
Yeah. So the year I played game against the Bulldogs, then I played against Essendon again, and then I played against Hawthorn.
Yeah.
And I remember the moment vividly. In the last quarter, we're playing against Hawthorn, and I'm playing on Jonathan Segler. And I've told a couple of my best mates this story. Playing against Jonathan Segler, and we're in the ruck together. So I'd gone from forward line, and Dimmer had chucked me in the ruck in the last quarter. I think that was kind of like can you do something in here? Because if you can't, we're getting rid of you.
Last chance.
Yep. So I go in the ruck and halve the hit out, whatever. They end up winning the ball, and it goes out wide, and Segler just takes off on me. And I'm thinking, fuck. So I've gone after him. Anyway, they get the ball out wide, and they hook it in. And Segler's got 5 metres on me, goes up, takes this contested mark in a pack, and I'm trailing behind him.
How far
and
away?
I remember, it would have been 5-10 metres off. And I remember thinking in my head, I reckon that might be me done. I think that actually might be me done. Anyway, got dropped following week. Played the rest of the year, playing in the 2s at Richmond, who had their own BFL team at that point.
Yeah.
And that was funny times because I think towards the back end of that year, I'd never really quite set into me that I was potentially going to get delisted.
Yeah, yeah.
And then sort of the night before, I sort of sat there before my exit meeting, and I was like, fuck, I actually might get let go here. Like, there's a chance. And then sure enough, went in there, and they just thought that it was the best thing for me to go and explore other options. So, had a chat with a couple of clubs and whatnot, but just nothing ever eventuated. And at that point, I got my head around potentially going into state, and that's sort of what brought me to Adelaide. So,
yeah, perfect. So I guess that leads into that well. Getting delisted, obviously, it's not the most ideal thing in the world, but a lot of the time, I guess from my perspective looking in, you see a lot of players get delisted, and then obviously they go on to do things that are either, they might still be in footy, or they go on and then actually, they achieve things, whether it be in media or something that's completely left field of what they actually were interested in. Obviously, so you come over here the very next year and signed with Glenelg then?
Yeah.
So 2017?
So back into 2016, I played a fair bit of football with Darcy Bailey, who's actually in the Glenelg side as well at the moment. So Darcy and I played local footy against each other and went through rep sides together. So Darcy's dad, Dean, actually obviously coached a fair bit, coached at Melbourne and coached at Port. I think Adelaide as well, actually.
Yeah, he was at the Crows for a bit.
Yeah, so Darcy, he hit me up back end of the year and was like, what are you sort of thinking footy-wise next year? And my head at that point was, I don't want to play BFL. I'm thinking, let's change it up and do something different. So for me, it was obviously a Waffle or the SANFL to come over here. Yep. I didn't really have any quals behind me at that point in time. I'd sort of done a short course in business when I was playing at Richmond, but coming out of high school with no real quals, obviously I was a bit nervous about how I would land. But got approached by Glenelg, and then had a few conversations, came over here before Christmas and trained with them. Met a lot of the players and went out for dinner. And I remember I was walking down Jetty Road, went to Beach Burrito and got a burrito. And I walked down to the end of Jetty Road and just sat there near the Mosey, and I was like, I could actually see myself living here. Like, this is pretty cool. And before that, I'd come over to Adelaide once before, and I vowed I'd never come back.
Oh, really?
I came over here for a mate's 21st. And I was staying at some shitty airport motel inn thing on Tapley's Hill. I didn't book it.
I know
That's
the
where
one.
we were staying.
I know the one.
I
stayed
the
there.
Aviators.
Stayed there when I was little. Fucking nightmare, mate.
I was literally with a couple, and I was at this tiny single bed at the end of their bed. I was like, fuck. So
this is Adelaide.
Yeah, and we went to Mr. Kim's in the city. My mate didn't get let in because he had a mullet. So we literally went all the way into the city, didn't get let anywhere, and then just went straight back to the motel.
I was going to say, it sounds about right.
Yeah, so I left. I got in the flight, and I was like, I'm never coming back back here ever again. So yeah, so then the second time around, I was like, you know, like Adelaide's a good spot. Like I wouldn't mind seeing what this has got to offer.
So you didn't know? Well, you said you knew Darcy, yeah.
And
So
Rory Atkins, who was at the Crows at the time.
Yeah.
So myself, Darcy, and Rory all played. They're all from local area as well. So
Yep.
I knew those two coming into it.
That was it, though?
That was it. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So 20. Sorry, I'm getting
It's 2017.
So this is 2017, and
Yep.
then so was that your first season playing at Glenelg?
Yep.
Yeah. So
Yep.
first season playing at Glenelg. What year was the first year you won the league's leading goal kicker? Was that
2019.
2019?
So,
yeah. So obviously, 2018 you played,
Yep.
obviously.
No, so 2018 I had the year off.
You had the year off. Okay.
I went overseas.
Yes, that's right. You told
Yep.
me that.
Mm.
So year off, 2019, first year back
Yep.
from overseas, very successful.
Yeah,
Very successful.
Look, the goal kicking stuff is obviously it's something that I'll probably look back on later on and be like, oh, that was sick. Like I'm happy I was able to do that. But
Yeah.
for me, coming back was always about winning a premiership. Like
Exactly.
I'd been
Yeah.
a little bit starved of success playing at Richmond in the VFL. We hadn't had any wins really. We're sort of, I reckon we were going at about 20%.
Yep.
For the 4 years that I was there, so I was used to playing in the teams that were losing. And then I came over to Glenelg, and the first year we actually had a red hot crack, but I think we finished 5th or 6th.
Yeah.
We're just off the pace. So I went away and I was like, look, I'm going to go just take some time away from footy, like get away from it for a little while.
Yeah.
I was just ready to have a change, and I'd got a visa to go and work over in the UK for 2 years. So I was originally planning on staying over there a lot longer.
Yeah.
And I sort of got off after the first month. I was like, look, I'd rather spend my money and go and party a bit and go and have fun,
Yep.
and then come back in sort of 4 months, 5 months time, and reset myself and see if I can have another crack at it. So we built a really good list, and I was like, at that point, I really want to go back to Glenelg. I didn't want to go back home to Melbourne. So I came back in 2019, and we had a really successful year, and we ended up, it culminated in us winning a flag. Individually I had a good year as well, but to win
that's not the first thing you think of.
Yeah,
obviously,
to win a flag, it was just like,
that's unreal.
can't even describe it. It was so much fun.
I'm trying to remember. I'm not the biggest follower of the SANFL, but obviously comes finals time, and I keep my eye on it. Absolutely, watch all the games, and especially like I said, in finals. Did Glenelg did you finish? I feel like you didn't finish top that year, or did you?
We finished top.
You did finish
we
top?
finished
Yeah.
top. We had the week off the first week.
Yeah.
But we got beaten by Port in the semi.
Yeah,
so we had to do it the hard way and then go through the next round against Adelaide.
I remember, my memory serves me correctly, I remember it was quite a long finals campaign, longer than probably what a lot of people were originally thinking it might have been.
Yeah.
But you played. Who'd you play in the granny?
We played Port again in the granny.
Yeah, and then how much did you end up winning by?
I think we won by just under 5 goals. I reckon it was 27 or 28 points or something like that. So we had a really
Unreal.
great win, and then there's nothing that really compares to having that kind of success.
Yeah.
Really looking forward to this season. Obviously, last year was a real stuff around with COVID and all that kind of stuff, and pretty jumbled up. I spent the first half of the year between Melbourne and Adelaide, and then the back half of the year the same. So it was obviously a weird year this year, but we've reset, and I'm looking forward to this year. I think it's gonna be fun.
I was going to say this year's obviously. By the time this comes out, we might be a few extra rounds in, but at this point in time, we're at round.
Yep.
3, that's correct. Yep, and you've won the first 2.
2-0.
Yeah, very good. Perfect start. That's what we like to hear. So I guess I was moving into. I've got a few more footy questions for you.
Yep.
And then we're going to move into something else. But footy, I'm going to call this a rapid fire question. So my first one is, if you can think of it off the top of your head, who's your most influential person in footy? From the age of a junior up until even now, because obviously you're still playing.
I'd say my dad.
Yep.
And not because he tried to overcoach me, or I think he's been the biggest influence football-wise from a young age, just teaching me different skills, telling me to practice my left and my right foot, making sure that my dad actually coached me a fair bit when I was younger, and I played actually a lot of midfield. So through that, tried to really sort of learn the craft of kicking both sides.
Yeah,
and
your skills as a big man.
That's
there. Yeah,
that's sort of what I wanted to have a focus on. So I'd say Dad's probably been the biggest influence, but there's been a lot of others. Mark Stone, who was our premiership coach, he was a really great mentor for me. But then from a football perspective and also a life perspective, I spent a lot of time with Emma Murray, she's a mindfulness coach now at Richmond. I spent a lot of time with her and her family, and
that's
she
unreal.
turned, not just from a football perspective, obviously I didn't have the greatest of success at the top level, but what she did for me in terms of changing my mindset and how I approach situations in my life, it completely turned me around. So,
that's obviously you'd be aware of like Dylan Friends podcast.
Yeah.
So
Dill's one of my mates actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Unreal. There you go.
Yeah.
So I'm obviously a fan. Obviously a fan of the potty. He had her on.
Yep.
For 5 weeks ago or
Yeah,
something.
a couple of weeks ago.
I'd like never heard of her or anything, but I'm obviously like, especially like this day and age, like it's massive getting into, like all the mindfulness stuff, and obviously it's like really evident in obviously sporting clubs and obviously footy as well, because the resources are there. But yeah, like obviously if you've worked with her and you can vouch for her and everything, but just listening to the podcast, like it was only an hour long, but I'd like took so much from that podcast just by what she was saying.
She's incredible, and her story of if you haven't, obviously, if anyone's listening to the podcast, listen to the one of Emma Murray with Dill. She's I mean, from her perspective, and what her story is, like her family went through a pretty traumatic time. Probably about 5 or 6 years ago now, when she first started working at the club. And her son was actually an aspiring football player. He was going to be a superstar from all reports, and jumped off a pier with his mates, just like having a bit of fun, and ends up being a pretty shallow spot. And he ended up becoming a quadriplegic. So
how old was he at that point?
I think he was 13 at that point. So I spent a lot of time with him, a lot of time with their family. They're just beautiful people, but the way that she remained so calm during that period in time and sort of controlling what she was able to control, and from the family's perspective, sort of encouraging them to do the same and
putting her work into practice.
100%. And so she brought that kind of attitude to us as well, to the footy club. I think that really actually turned Richmond around at that point in time. When I was playing there as well. A lot of, I mean, I've obviously just listened to like a few of the players and like coaches speak about her and how highly I guess they hold her in regards. So no, for sure, that's good. How many more questions am I going to ask you on footy? I've got two questions, I guess, that if a little kid come running up to you, they'd probably ask you. Best player you've ever played with. If you had to narrow it down to one, if that's even possible. Well, I'd say it would probably have to be Dusty. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, at the time when I was there, he was really influencing games, but not the level that he is now. But still, you could always tell that he was just naturally like so gifted in everything he did, everything he was doing. At that point in time, he was sort of like, I don't think he was probably as fit as what he is now. And he actually invested. It's funny, he invested a lot of time and energy into the mindfulness stuff that Murray brought in. And the Resilience Project, if you've ever read that book as well. Or
I haven't, but I know all about it,
He was like so heavily invested in that, which I think even like he took his footy to another level,
The link's definitely there, in terms of like the years that he started to turn it on full time.
Absolutely, for sure. So he's definitely the best I reckon to play with.
Would he be the hardest trainer, would you say? Or is there another one that's...
Nah.
To mind?
If I'm a very honest judge of myself, and to be honest, probably the reason I never really made it quite to the level was I probably just didn't really apply myself as much as I should have. And when I was younger, I think you kind of naturally can just sort of phase in and out and do what you need to do. But when you're at that high level, you've got to be committed and dedicated.
24/7,
Yeah, and to be honest, like I think from a lifestyle perspective, I probably wasn't ready to give up my social life and my life outside of footy. And talking about footy, like even this, like I've never really recounted as much of my footy journey as much, because it's not something I kind of I prefer to align myself to in a way. I think I've kind of tried to get away from that.
Yeah, for sure.
Of being a footballer, but even now it's kind of like it's kind of cool to look back on.
Yeah,
and talk
absolutely.
About,
yeah,
this is something I've always tried to get away from in a way. I've always wanted to have a life outside of footy. So
well, that's probably, I reckon that's a perfect segue into the next thing we were going to talk about. So